Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday. It means office hours here on the Academy. I'm Johan. Andrew is Andrew, and this is where you can get updates on pretty much anything in the MDT Intune ConfigMgr ecosystems, as well as ask pretty much any question you like related to those topics. And that being said, let's get going. All right, welcome back, sir.
Hey there, how are you doing?
Pretty good. It's been a long week, but heck, we're halfway through it.
Absolutely, and I'm not complaining too much that we're pretty much frozen inside our houses tonight. Get to relax after this, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was it felt almost spring early this week, which is rare for February in Chicago. So yeah, we even had the horses out eating a little bit of grass for their first time since basically October or something. They were super happy.
Oh, I bet. I don't know that they're probably too happy today. Do they have icicles hanging off of their
They have been
noses?
indoors today, put it that way. Yeah. Not pleased about it, but they've been indoors.
Yeah, the lesser of two evils, I'm sure, for them.
Yeah, indeed. So, what's up? What's going on in our little community?
As usual, busy week. If you'd like to share my screen, I've got a few things that I came across this week.
Should be able to. Here we go.
All right. Hey, look, I know that guy's blog.
That sounds familiar.
Last night I was happy to see that Thorsten on Twitter had posted the release notes for a new version of ESXi 7.0. For those that are a VMware shop and keeping up to date with their Windows Server patches, they may have noticed last week's February cumulative update specifically for Server 2022. If you had Server 2022 VMs and they had UEFI Secure Boot enabled, once you applied that cumulative update, they would no longer boot. That, I would say, is less than optimal. I think you would put it that way, Johan?
I would categorize that as like one of the key features of Windows Server.
Yeah, you need to be able to start up and actually use it. So VMware, as far as I can tell, it looks like the issue was on the VMware side, and they released a patch just yesterday to fix that. From what I've seen so far in a lab, this appears to have resolved the problem, updated to this version of ESXi, updated a Server 22 VM that had Secure Boot enabled, and it worked. Obviously, this could be a pretty major upgrade in your environment, so test first. But I definitely preferred going this route rather than skipping patches for this month or rolling back UEFI on a VM that already had it enabled. So that was a big deal. And I know there was a lot of traction around this news over the last week. So I wanted to mention that right off the bat. Our friend Jorgen Nilsson posted last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, but I missed it last week. He's been busy converting some of the security baselines in Intune over to use the settings catalog. He did this with Edge and now has done this on the main Windows security baseline. So this is really great because this allows us to use the settings catalog more consistently across some of these settings. And the security baselines now, though there aren't necessarily really broad changes happening, the security baselines that are in Intune, some of them haven't been updated for quite some time. So this is great, and I wanted to call that out. couple other community things that I have come across. Niklas Tinner posted a nice blog post on Intune RBAC permissions. This is favorite topic of mine. So anytime somebody comes up with something new and interesting content in this space, I'm always happy to share this out. So I'll make sure to get this link posted. And Jonathan over at the System Center Dudes posted a link on managing Google Chrome with Intune. So this is, you have to import an ADMX file into Intune, and then from there you can go ahead and manage Chrome similarly to how you might manage it with GPOs today. Real quick, quiet announcement I saw from Microsoft was that MFA Number Matching was actually pushed back. So this was going to go, number matching was going to be enabled by default for all tenants next week. But then the news started to trickle out yesterday that the date had changed to May 8th. And I didn't really see any announcements or anything. I just saw people start to talk about it. So I kind of wanted to amplify that news a little bit if in your organization you were planning on that happening next week. And then lastly, I saw some pretty shiny information on Twitter yesterday that our friends over at Cloudway are going to be doing a new masterclass on the Academy surrounding Intune customization and reporting here at the end of May after MMS. So that is pretty cool. That's a brand new class on the Academy, right?
Yes, sir. Very excited to have Cloudway back. They've been supporting us for years on the platform, so I'm looking forward to this one.
Oh gosh, I love watching their presentations. They're great, so I'm looking forward to it as well.
Even Kylo here seems very interested in the topic. So
he's always interested in Intune, ConfigMgr, Azure AD.
Yes, yep.
What a good boy.
He is a good boy.
So that was all I had for today.
All right, then. I was, first of all, I also had some interesting things happen with the update, the February update, because it broke pretty much all my deployment servers after applying it. So I figured I could share something around that. So get this one going. So over here, I deployed a new MDT server, extended it nicely with PowerShell, and had my MIME type set up correctly to allow WIM files to deploy happily through it, and then applied the update, and nothing worked. And after a bit of troubleshooting and a little bit of help from friends over at Big Bank, Mike Terrell, he led me into, they probably added something in MIME time. So like, all right, let's take a look. So I ended up doing some PowerShelling. I used this little command here to export out the MIME types before and after the update, and sure enough, let's see where I put that little screenshot. I did a little PowerShell comparison that I tweeted out earlier today, but I have it here in this folder here, maybe. I have a lot of folders. Turn out that the update added in these two. Not on the site level, on the host level. So that means any site or any virtual directory that you have where you have custom defined WIM types, they will break. They will not allow. Even the UI crashes when you open it and say, nope, can't do this. So I have to delete them. And then I got a tip from Aaron Young on through Twitter. It's like, yeah, this is probably related to the upcoming on-premises version of Universal Updates. And sure enough, it was. So let's see if I can find that link again. I sent it out earlier today. Didn't have that many tweets going.
It's interesting. So February Patch Tuesday was full of excitement for us.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, so this one here. Let me close these guys and open up this. So this was, of course, announced last year, but for this one to work, there are MIME times that need to be configured. And sure enough, those were the exact same MIME types that was added without me knowing on every system that we patched with the February update. So yeah, that was an interesting evening. Figure that one out. So luckily, the solution is simple. Go in and delete them, or delete the one that you had on a level down, and problem goes away. But yeah, anyhow. Then I stumbled across a quite interesting video from our good friend Dean. I'll go ahead and I'm not going to play back the video, but I'm going to share the link with you guys. He was demonstrating a new or somewhat new package manager that is available in a sort of an early preview release at the moment. But it's a website that you go to at intunepackagemanager.com or intunepckgr.com. I'm assuming it's the correct pronunciation here. But if I go over to that URL, this is where you can simply click through a web GUI and have it create applications in Intune for you. Of course, you need to allow this solution to create and delete apps in your tenant. And if you have a lab environment, I'm assuming that is okay. But I don't know too much about the organization behind this. I found out after a little search that it's apparently been hosted by a gentleman, Dale Flanagan. And they do have a Twitter account, and he's available on LinkedIn as well. But that's all I know. And I probably want to know a little bit more about an organization before I allow them to just go in and create and delete applications in my tenant. But it was a very interesting solution. So if you're interested in looking it out, if you have a lab tenant where you can play around, by all means, why not? So we'll share that link together with the others. Then I stumbled across a tweet from Trevor Jones, a very common guest, not in the studio, but we mentioned his blog post. So we should probably bring him in. I'll make a note of that right now. He's been part of the community forever. It would be nice to have a chat with him.
Yeah, that would be great.
Sidebar. He released a new version of his Base64 converter. It's an App Store application, so I decided to install it on one of my devices just now before the session. We'll share the link, of course, and that application allows you to very easily, for example, take an image that you have. I stole our logo. You need to select image first and then convert. It's much easier if you do that. But you pick your image and you hit convert, and it will give you the Base64 representation of that image that you can include in your scripts and send down to client without having to download a separate image file. Of course, reasonable sizing is a given, but it's still pretty cool. I've seen this technique being used in other scenarios where you're sending down toast notifications, etc., to a client, and you don't want to have to copy files and deal with that stuff. So elegant. And of course, you can do basic encoding of text as well if needed. So both encode and decode are available. I thought that was pretty cool. All right. That's what... No, one more thing. We talked last Wednesday about the new device drivers and firmware options that Microsoft made available, sort of the foundation for it. The GUI pieces for Intune are not yet ready. Rumors are that will be available later this year. But the foundation is there, so you can work with PowerShell and Graph to do things with it. And there is also an application you can download that help you manage that a little bit. But what I was excited to find after playing around with that one for a bit, and just to give you some context here, let me fire up that application and sign in. So it's a simple download from the repository or the sample repository. And after installing it, you can just start it. And it opens up a little local web type server, allowing you to configure all these policies somewhat nicely, at least. So I'm going to sign in. The application is not entirely truthful. It says I'm not authenticated. I actually am authenticated. But here I can see my various Dell and HP devices. And if I click one of these policies, it will show me what drivers and firmware that are available for each of those. And I simply went ahead and approved a few of them. They got installed pretty much immediately on the client, like within minutes after forcing a scan. They were that quick. I know after talking to Nir, one of the program managers last week about this, their SLA is apparently 2 hours for the solution, but I'm guessing it's early, and I was just lucky. It was like super fast, and I was very impressed. Anyhow, when I went back and checked my, see, I actually made a link here. I think it might be that one. Let's see. What can go wrong in the live demo? Yeah, so here's the report, Windows Update for Business. I have my settings configured to report telemetry to this one. And what happened after a little while was that in my driver updates area, this is where I start to see the approved the updates that I have approved. And in this case, it showed me the 2 BIOS versions that I approved for my HP Firefly device. So all in all, the platform is working. I recommend to play around with it, try to test it to the limits. David Brooks, as we mentioned last week, he has a few good setup videos about the topic and a really good blog post. So yeah, it's exciting times. I'm very excited for this. I'm also very biased. I happen to like deployment, but that's me.
So, in general, I gather that since you've been playing around with this for the last week or so now, that you seem pretty positive, pretty optimistic about what could come out of this platform. Is that right?
Yeah, it was actually better than I thought it would be. Okay. But the 2 years of testing, I'm assuming, played into that. But it's even capable of detecting, say that I have an old Dell box. I happen to have a few of them in my basement here. If I'm on BIOS version 1 and want to go to BIOS version 3, some of these machines are so old so they can't do that jump in one go. The solution is smart enough to detect that and offer me version 2 first. So I can upgrade to version 2, and then the next scan after that, I will see version 3 popping up. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't have expected that, if I'm being honest, with the first public release. That is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, there are still limitations. For example, you saw here that I had named my policies something clever. Those names are currently not stored up in Graph. I have to store them somewhere else locally for now, but I've been told that those are updates that are coming. I mean, that this was their first milestone, so I expect them to have some extra work coming, but crossing fingers, it won't be too long, and yeah, very excited.
Awesome.
All right, what questions do we have for today?
All right, our first one coming in from YouTube. How do I clean up Windows upgrade updates that are not needed in Windows servicing section of Configuration Manager? I have around 2850 upgrade updates listed in that section. We only need 22 upgrades in our environment.
I actually haven't tried cleaning up like the enablement packages and whatnot. Usually only clean up the normal updates in config manager. I wonder if, let's go over to this one here. Not patch my PC right now, but this solution here is a solution from Jeff, also at Big Bank. And then, of course, we have from Brian Dam his maintenance solution for software updates. And what I like about both of these solutions, and we have links to them. There was some incident back in, not one, there was like 1,000 of them the same week. Where updates were crashing left and right in February. So we ended up writing a long article around it. It took about 2 weeks to provide the article, but this is basically what you need to do with the WSUS server to keep it happy for config manager usage, especially when things go wrong, to buy some time and whatnot. But in here, there are links to recommended SQL scripts that you can run to figure out how you're doing your updates. And there are also SQL scripts that we use to very quickly, or as quickly as possible, I should say, find out when we have information with large update information about them or metadata, or if you simply want to go in and start to remove or decline updates of certain length. But these solutions here, they have that elegant notion that you can run them in a what-if mode. So you can see here, I run one of them, and it told me that in my environment I had 79 updates that can certainly be declined because they are superseded and they are older than 90 days. I also have 38 preview updates and I have 60 ARM updates. Prior to this Christmas, I didn't name ARM updates at all, so I would just have removed them all. But now I actually have a device that is ARM, so okay, fine. I may have to keep them if I want to test patching through config manager on that device. But I'm assuming that something similar can be leveraged to decline those many feature updates, but it's not something I have tested. And just to give you an idea on what's being referred to here is that if you're using, that was Gary's sequence. If you're using servicing in config manager for going to one version of Windows to another, all those updates are obviously listed here. Yeah, it's coming. So even if you only download the ones you need, the others will still be listed here. So if I will go ahead and search for enablement as an example, it will show me the enablement packages that are available for easy servicing of the various Windows 10 to something versions. But as far as did they change this list, I don't know. That's something you stumbled across, Andrew?
I was just trying to do a little bit of research because I saw the same thing, and what a lot of people are confused by, rightfully so, I think, is that it's also showing the every single language basically that's available for the feature update. So I did come across a Reddit post where somebody was talking about this, and Brian Dam mentions that he wrote a language plugin for his software update maintenance script, specifically for this reason. So I can either, if you want to pop over to my screen for a moment, I can pull it up and then either share the Reddit post.
Yeah.
Cool. I can share the Reddit post and or the his blog post here. So basically, this post here is almost the exact same question, I think. And I went into my lab, and just like you saw a moment ago, Johan, you've got the same thing. You had over 2,000 updates there. and Brian's response was the top reply. So he has a software update maintenance automation script.
Yeah, that was the one I had up on the screen earlier.
Oh, sorry. so it looks like I guess that's what I get for trying to do research over here while you were talking about it. But yes, that's as far as I could tell, that's the only solution. Otherwise, it's just ignore it.
Yep. All right. Awesome. Let's see what else.
Another question on YouTube. Is there any chance to install proofing tools via SCCM? Is it just the XML config file which can cause problems?
Oh, good Lord. I haven't installed proofing tools since.
It's been a while.
I don't know when. It's been a decade or so. I'm assuming it follows the usual Office setup where you provide it with a well-formatted XML file, you run the setup, and it will do it. But have I done it? No.
No, same here.
Seeing some few older blog posts out there, but nothing recent, I think. No, I'm at loss for that one, I'm afraid. There are a few threads here and there explaining the scenario. Putting a config file in the proofkit folder and do it, but not tried it. But I mean, keywords to search for would be like proofing tools, SCCM, silent or unattended or something like that, and hopefully some information will come up that can be helpful for you. But I don't have any examples or not something I have done in recent years.
Same here. Unfortunately, nothing to add.
Yeah. If anyone out there happen to know how to deploy proofing through ConfigMgr, by all means, let us know. I'll be happy to share that information. There was a question coming in regarding sharing information about the Windows Update for Business and drivers. We just did that a little while ago, so if you missed that, you can just go back and watch that recording. It was literally maybe 10-20 minutes ago-ish. Yeah. So, yeah. Anything else? Shorthand summary version, it is shiny. That was my takeaway on it.
That's good. That's a good review right there.
Yeah, Yeah. I have to say, I am working on a blog post on the topic. I hope we'll be able to publish it this weekend if all goes well. But it's a lot of new PowerShell that needed to be written, and took me a while to figure out all the basically the new options available in Graph for these.
Well, with any luck, if I get some testing done over the next couple of days, your deployment research will have a couple of new blog posts by the end of this weekend.
Yeah, all goes well. All right, there was a question coming in on the ConfigMgr sequence monitor tool. I'm assuming that's a tool that is from Trevor Jones. Let me go ahead and share my screen again. If I start up a deployment of sorts, see if I can get this friend going. It's always interesting when should be able to show that tool. Wonder if this ISO is somewhat updated.
Doesn't he know it's cold and wet out there?
He's been outside and he was very hesitant about the whole situation.
I believe it, and I don't blame him.
No. So I just sent a text to the general manager of the office asking for some assistance. Anyhow, I pick a sequence. I start a deployment of sorts. Skip the naming for now. That's okay. Yeah, no, dang it. This was an older one. Anyhow, let me show you the monitor tool. So this one here, there are a few different versions of it available. It allows you to pick a sequence, whatever that sequence may be, and set a time period, and it will show you the real-time actions of everything that happens in that sequence. So that I think is pretty cool. The download link has been broken for a bit, but he fixed it recently. Because if you, like many other things, it was available on the TechNet gallery for the longest time. But all of those links, of course, were destroyed more or less when Microsoft decided to massacre that platform. But he has been changing it over to GitHub recently, I think. Yeah, it's available on the GitHub repo now. If you want older version, the MSI installer for like 1.5, you can get that one also from the Wayback machine. See if I can find a broken link. Maybe this one will work. Oh, that was something else. I was hoping to be able to find a broken link, but yeah, here is one. here's a link on TechNet Gallery. If I try to open to that one, this is usually the interface you're being met with. For those of you that are creative seekers out there, you will find that the entire old TechNet Gallery is floating around in a large object that can be retrieved using tools. But other than that, what I found extremely useful is simply take this link and go to the Wayback machine and, well, the Internet Archive, that is. And not donating now, I have actually been donating to them. So if you go back in time at some point before May or June, whatever they broke it, this is where you can usually find the older versions of the tool, or whatever version you're downloading. So useful trick, I think, to find all the stuff.
Use that trick many, many times now.
Yeah.
Very useful.
There's a question for you, Andrew.
Well, I think I can take that one. So how do we create basically a role in Microsoft Endpoint Manager to allow our level 1 team to delete an Intune enrolled device? We're in hybrid Azure AD join. We need to do that before we can reimage the Intune enrolled PC again. So I think, yes, if you'd like to switch over to my screen, Johan. I think I can take that. So basically what you can do for role-based access in the Intune Admin Center is there are some, obviously some built-in roles that you can create, but if you just want to have have a group, an Azure AD group, give them the ability to delete an enrolled device, we can create a custom role here, and we can call it, just say demo delete devices. And then under permissions, we'll have the managed devices group. And from there, we should be able to select yes, next, next. And then you would take and basically assign this Intune role that we've just created to a group of devices and a group of users and a scope. So we can just say, give it a name, assign this to an admin group. Just select a group here. Group doesn't really matter too much for the demo, but basically a group of the administrators that you want to have the ability to perform the action you've given them rights to in that role. And then add that group here. And then scope tags, we can just do the default here. And that should largely be it. You'd want to test this in your own environment. I'm not sure if there's an additional part of the role that needs to be added, an additional permission beyond just the delete managed devices. But at least going through it briefly, that looks like should at least get you along your way.
All right, awesome.
Cool.
Let's see what else. A question from Vert here, asking if you tested launch or TSLaunch for any deployments. It's been years since I looked at that tool. I'm not sure if there are any newer versions available, but I brought up the link here. If I can go ahead and steal the screen again. So this one here is a tool that Jorgen and Johan released back in 2018. This is quite similar to the IPU installer they had in concept, at least. So I would probably look for that one instead. So this one here that is basically designed to allow servicing of Windows machines that are on VPN connections. So it's rather an application than a sequence, because the sequence may have troubles coming back after reboot and try to continue whatever it was doing, because there is no longer a VPN connection established. But since this is an application, there is no continuing per se. So maybe look at this one if you're interested in those kind of scenarios. Hoping that can be helpful.
Very cool. Ari is asking, our existing devices don't have a recovery partition set. Now, once we import the device hash into the Autopilot service, will these devices have any issues going through the Autopilot process?
I haven't seen any issues been depending on a recovery partition not being there, but I can't say I have tried either. Most deployment solutions create one by default, and that means most machines will have it. But it's easy to test. I mean, deploy one without it and see if it works. But I haven't tried. I don't know.
Same.
Yeah.
Matt was asking, not a config manager question, but any idea why ChatGPT is not open like before? As far as I've seen, simply just it's so wildly popular that the resources just simply weren't there to keep it open. I've seen a couple of graphs. I think it's the fastest application to 1 million users, and then the fastest to 10 or even 100 million. Don't quote me on that. I know I've just seen more graphs, as the weeks have gone on now, and it's been growing at an exponential rate as far as usage.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up. Let's see if I have it here. I simply went and paid the $20 per month to have access to it. It's been working quite well. And sure, it's not free, but it's not $1 million either. It's pretty much what the Netflix subscriptions are these days, give or take.
So, and with that subscription, you can just access it at any time. You don't get put in a wait list or anything.
I have no problem running it after. I only had it for 2 weeks with this, or a week and a half. But
okay.
It seems to be working well. I don't know if there are any other options available, but this was the one I signed up for.
Cool.
So, yeah.
All right. Ari's asking, Autopilot for existing devices. What is the best way to accomplish this for thousands of devices? So there is
by not doing it. I mean, all in all, the idea of copying in a JSON file that holds the deployment profile and expect Autopilot to pick that up. I don't think that scenario was intended originally for like mass deployments. I found it much more reliable to use enrollment packages if you have lots and lots of devices that you need to install through Autopilot, or leverage any of the other mechanisms that we've been showcasing here throughout the various office hours, where you put in the logic to enroll inside the sequence itself using the various graph APIs that are available to make that process reliable and controlled. Sure, it's going to add about 20 minutes to your deployment, but it's going to be rock solid. It's going to work equally well every single time. And I think those solutions where you put in the control mechanisms are more reliable than just copying in a file and hope it will work. So that's what I would do. And I mean, we share these resources many times here in the office hours. But basically, the concept of leveraging other techniques to do deployment, but still keep enrollment as part of your sequence of the imaging process, which is technically what the existing devices are, that scenario.
Awesome. Great stuff. Got one more in the queue right now from YouTube. Does the user-driven hybrid Azure AD join scenario require TPM in Autopilot?
I'm sure that requires TPM at the station. Some of the other scenarios do, but I don't. I mean, there is no reason not to have it enabled or available. And in Windows 11 case, you don't have a choice; you have to. But I haven't seen a requirement for the TPM being available for a hybrid Azure AD join or a hybrid join to work in Autopilot. But at the same time, have I tested on a device that didn't have it? No. Well, I guess I have. I had a few VMs that I deployed through hybrid Azure AD join, and I had not, or hybrid Autopilot join, and I had not enabled them with a virtual TPM chip, and they went through. So I take that as indication book that it actually will work without the TPM chip. But I haven't tested the physical devices, so don't be too mad if that's turned out to be not the full truth.
Yeah, so I think the only scenario specific that I can think of off the top of my head that would require TPM is pre-provisioning.
Yeah, and self-deploying.
Yes.
The kiosk stuff.
That's right.
Great questions, though. Any other questions out there? We have a whopping 10 minutes to spare.
It's a good amount of time.
It's a good amount of time.
Otherwise, I'll just mention that we're a week away from season 3 of Mando.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm properly dressed for the occasion.
Yes, you are. Oh, there's a follow-up question that just came in. What is the best way to create a virtual lab for Autopilot pre-provisioning testing? Understand we can't do pre-provision on VMs. So
the statement is true. Accidentally, I was able to get it to work on a few VMs. I have no idea why and how, but it worked. But you're supposed to have physical devices only. And that basically means that you have to set up some sort of regular deployments for your devices. So you can do that without preferably breaking your home network or your production network at work. VLAN tagging, I would say, is probably the most common scenario, where you use, say, a pfSense router to open up one of your network cards to see if I can simulate that with Paint a bit. So basically, you have your lab server here running Hyper-V. So you have a bunch of VMs on this server, and then you have your and this could be a $50 Netgear switch, because they even those, as long as they are managed, they will support VLAN tagging, and that allow you to take a few ports here of that switch, and one of these ports you will connect to whatever internet access you have in your environment. This is supposed to be internet. Come on, you. And then the other ports you will tag with a specific VLAN that you also will tag to your VMs or VMs that you use for this, so that the server can communicate with these guys when you deploy them without necessarily break your production or network or upset the network team or whatever. So that is one option. One option before I went the switch route was I bought I wonder if I have a few of those still around. Yeah, I have a ton of these StarTech. I have like 5 of them. They are dual gigabit USB card. They have a USB-C version as well. And I just plug it into my laptop where I have my deployment server. And I use one card for the devices that I was deploying, and the other one was for access to internet and other things. So there are options available for sure. And on that note, we're very pleased, of course, that we have scheduled another, turned out to be one of the more popular free courses we have on the Academy, building the perfect lab for MDT and Intune and ConfigMgr. And we have one coming up in March. So if you don't have anything scheduled for that, I believe it's a Thursday, by all means, join us for a shiny session on getting a lab up and running, including network configuration and picking hardware and other good stuff.
Probably so popular because if you are as nerdy as we are, it's like a rabbit hole, and it just ends up being, I mean, obviously you learn a ton from having a home lab. You and I are huge proponents of having home labs for your own professional development, but man, is it fun too.
Yeah. But it's the best tool you can ever give yourself as an IT pro. It's having access to a lab.
100%.
The more the merrier, I was about to say, but even a simple lab server or lab machine will go do just fine. You can still accomplish a lot of stuff. But then, of course, when you start to do physical deployments and whatnot, then you need to expand a little bit, another switch or a few machines on eBay or something. Yeah. But yeah, great question.
All right. Ari had a question about the new Microsoft Store apps are not installing properly on all devices. Any pointers to look at for troubleshooting?
No, not for me.
No, I don't. I don't either. I mean, I've been doing some searching for the last couple of minutes after I saw the question pop up. But I mean, we've talked about the new store and the new solution here. We've deployed a couple of things, even in office hours, and thus far, I haven't had I had a scenario that I've had to troubleshoot. That said, I haven't been assigning any applications at scale. So, unfortunately, I don't have anything, but something I will keep an eye out for if we do come across that scenario where we do have to troubleshoot or anything. I'd be happy to share it on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's still fairly new. It's only
Yeah.
been available for 2 months or so.
Yep.
All right. Anything else out there? All right, I don't see any questions coming up in the queue here, so thank you so much for joining, everyone. We will see you hopefully again next Wednesday, and have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.